The 1980s were a transformative decade for video games, laying the groundwork for the modern gaming industry. This era witnessed the birth of iconic franchises like Pac-Man and Super Mario Bros., as well as groundbreaking technology that set new standards for gameplay and graphics. The popularity of arcade games soared, fueling a cultural shift that redefined entertainment. Innovations such as the introduction of home consoles and the rise of personal computers brought gaming into households across the globe. This decade's advancements in game design and technology have had a lasting impact, with many 80s classics continuing to influence game development and player experiences today. Let's explore these iconic series and uncover why they were so impactful and how their influence still resonates in today's entertainment landscape. The arcade boom. The early 80s saw an explosive growth in arcade gaming, fueled by the success of iconic titles like Pac-Man and Donkey Kong. Released in 1980 and 1981 respectively, these games captured the public's imagination with their engaging gameplay and memorable characters. Pac-Man became a cultural icon, influencing everything from merchandise to television shows. Meanwhile, Donkey Kong introduced players to Mario, a character who would become a cornerstone of Nintendo's success and the broader gaming industry. Arcades became social hubs where players competed for high scores and socialized, driving the popularity of games and creating a vibrant gaming culture. The arcade boom was characterized by a rapid influx of new titles and a growing interest in competitive gaming, laying the groundwork for future esports. The rise of arcade games. The 1980s began with a surge in arcade gaming. Games like Pac-Man, 1980, and Donkey Kong, 1981, not only captivated players with their simple yet addictive gameplay, but also became cultural phenomena. Pac-Man introduced a non-violent alternative to the action-packed games of the time, with its maze chase mechanics and charming characters. Meanwhile, Donkey Kong marked the debut of Mario, a character who would become one of the most iconic figures in gaming history. The birth of home consoles. The early 80s also witnessed the transition from arcade dominance to home consoles. The Atari 2600, which debuted in 1977, was still popular, but the introduction of the Nintendo Entertainment System, NES, in 1985 marked a significant shift. The NES revived the video game industry after the crash of 1983 and introduced players to classics like Super Mario Bros. And The Legend of Zelda. These games not only featured groundbreaking graphics and sound for their time, but also introduced elements like side-scrolling and open-world exploration that would become staples in future games. Home consoles and the rise of Nintendo and Sega. The success of arcade games laid the foundation for the rise of home consoles, transforming gaming from an arcade pastime into a household activity. The Nintendo Entertainment System, NES, launched in 1983 in Japan and 1985 in North America, played a crucial role in this shift. With its innovative design, robust library of games, and influential franchises like Super Mario Bros., the NES revitalized the video game industry, which had suffered a crash in the early 80s due to oversaturation and declining quality. Nintendo's dominance was soon challenged by Sega, which entered the market with its Sega Master System in 1986. The competition between Nintendo and Sega drove rapid technological advancements and innovation. Sega's aggressive marketing and popular titles like Sonic the Hedgehog helped it carve out a significant market share and fostered a spirited rivalry that would define the gaming landscape for years to come. The advent of RPGs and strategy games. The 80s also saw the emergence of role-playing games, RPGs, and strategy games, genres that would grow significantly in the following decades. Final Fantasy, 1987, and Dragon Quest, 1986, were pioneering titles in the RPG genre, offering players intricate stories, character progression, and expansive worlds to explore. These games laid the groundwork for many modern RPGs and established narrative depth as a key component of gaming. SimCity, 1989, created by Will Wright, introduced the world to simulation games, where players could design and manage their own virtual cities. This genre would evolve into various forms, influencing countless games that combined strategy with simulation elements. Technological innovations. Technological advancements in the 80s played a crucial role in shaping video games. The introduction of 16-bit consoles like the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, SNES, in the latter part of the decade provided enhanced graphics and sound capabilities. This leap forward allowed developers to create more complex and visually appealing games, setting a new standard for the industry. Legacy and influence. The impact of 80s video games extends far beyond their initial release. Many franchises that began in this decade, such as Mario, Zelda, and Metroid, continue to thrive today, with new titles and remakes keeping their legacies alive. The innovation and creativity of 80s games laid the groundwork for the expansive and diverse gaming landscape we enjoy now. Cultural impact and legacy. The 1980s solidified video games as a major cultural force, with the industry's growth extending beyond arcade and home gaming into television, comics, and other media. The decade's games and characters became deeply ingrained in popular culture, influencing fashion, music, and even the nascent internet culture. As the decade drew to a close, the groundwork was laid for the next phase of gaming. The innovations of the 80s in game design, technology, and market strategy set the stage for the emergence of 16-bit consoles in the early 90s, and the continued evolution of video gaming into the 21st century. The 1980s were a pivotal decade in the evolution of video games, marked by transformative developments that shaped the future of gaming. Arcade classics like Pac-Man and Donkey Kong dominated the scene, while the rise of home consoles such as the Nintendo Entertainment System, NES, brought gaming into living rooms across the globe. This era also saw the birth of new genres, including platformers and RPGs, which laid the groundwork for future innovations. The influence of 80s games remains profound, reminding us of a time when video games began to capture the imagination of players worldwide and set the stage for the dynamic industry we know today. If you're a fan of nostalgia or just curious about what made video games in the 80s so special, you won't want to miss this journey through some of the most beloved video games in the 80s of the decade. Hit that like button, subscribe for more throwback content, and leave a comment sharing your favorite The Rise of Video Games in the 80s.